What is going on, investors? Hopefully guys are doing well out there. That is right. It is the weekend. It's time to kick back a little bit and relax because it's also time for the FAANG Stock Recap Show here in the Investor Channel, where every Friday we recap all the major news and the technical chart patterns from all the major FAANG stocks. We've got the technical charts to get to. We've also got a lot of news, so we better not waste any more time. Kick things off like we always do. Meta Platforms. Start the week at 487, sliding sideways to finish the week at 484. The United States House of Representatives here in the United States have agreed on something, and they've agreed to pass a bill that could potentially lead to the sale or potentially even ban the most popular application and maybe even the most popular website here in the United States. Of a vote from 352 to just 65, you rarely see this type of bipartisan support on a very consequential bill. Like, this would actually do something. It would potentially ban TikTok if ByteDance, the parent company that is based out of China, if they're not able to sell this website. I think they have just months to do it. Well, it would get banned. And if they were to sell it, we're talking about probably one of the most valuable assets on the internet would force to be sold. And so this is a very consequential bill that is tough to say on a Friday, as most things are. We've got Majority Leader, though, Chuck Schumer, who's the Democrat out of the great state of New York. He has so far declined to endorse it by bringing it to the floor of the Senate. My guess is it would potentially narrowly pass the United States Senate. Would be interesting because the President, Joe Biden, said he would sign the bill if it made it to his desk. Now, what's interesting is former President Trump, who kind of initially led right towards the tail end of his presidency, he actually tried to ban TikTok, and that was more or less going through the motions in Washington. And potentially, if he got reelected, it's something that might have gotten actually through, and TikTok might have actually been sold. I believe at the time, Oracle, Microsoft, and I think Walmart were actually potential bidders. Now, President Trump, who I think is being wooed by mega donors who have connections to ByteDance, now Trump has kind of reversed his stance, and he says a ban would empower Meta, which in his view, it may not be a good thing. Now, former Treasury Secretary under the former President Trump says he's putting together a group to buy TikTok as the political tensions around the app continue to grow. Mnuchin obviously probably stands to benefit from some type of investor fee or fees collected on this. Also, we're not just talking about buying a social media platform. We're talking about buying influence, very much like Elon Musk has done. Some people might say successfully or unsuccessfully with X or Twitter. You are buying influence. So depending on who buys this, if a company like, let's just throw out examples out there, if a company like Disney were to buy TikTok, it would go in one direction. If somebody like the former president or maybe even Elon Musk were to buy TikTok, it'd probably go in a different direction. So depending on who ends up with this asset could depend a lot on the influence here in the United States, particularly of young people. Moving on to Apple, start of the week at 173. Like a lot of these stocks, just finding no direction this week, kind of up and down, probably some good trading opportunities. Finish the week, we'll just call it flat on Apple. They are set to open a new store in China amid declining iPhone sales. So Apple just kind of going to the well. They're seeing their product decline in popularity, decline in sales in the country of China. So they're doubling down on what has worked in the past, and that is physical retail. We'll see if that is a strategy that works. Several AI headlines as it relates to Apple this week as they are testing an AI-powered ad product inside of their app store, following in the footsteps of Meta and particularly Google, which have AI running behind the scenes on a lot of their ad products. Apple to allow EU developers to distribute apps directly from websites. This all stems from different types of policy changes and lawsuits inside of the European Union, as you have large app makers that are going to be able to sell their games, create different types of app stores within the App Store, and avoid paying Apple's hefty 30% tax in some cases on every dollar that flows through there. Apple acquired a Canadian startup, Darwin AI. This is a retroactive announcement as this was completed sometime earlier this year. They've taken on the founder, Alexander Wong, and many of the employees as Apple looking for their next leg of growth. Moving on to Amazon, start of the week at 173 and some change. basically flat, up, we'll call that maybe fractionally, up to $174.42. Amazon's got some new merchant fees, and some analysts think this will add over $5 billion of operating income, which is more than $1 billion a quarter. And for Amazon, which had their operating income balloon nicely in the fourth quarter, well, this is actually pretty tangible to a company that is still in the ramp-up phase of producing positive operating income every single quarter. Now, the company announced that they're going to increase a fee for sellers on a 15 cents per unit basis. Amazon's fees are somewhat complicated, which is leading to an investigation by U.S. regulators. Talked about that on last week's show. Wells Fargo, and this is really interesting. This is really interesting. I'll try to help you connect the dots here. So with Amazon, if I'm a seller and I have this like figure and I'm trying to sell it, I have a couple of options to sell this figure. I can send it into Amazon and have Amazon store it in its warehouses, and when it sells, they pick it, they pack it, and they ship it, and it often goes through an Amazon van and it gets delivered to your door either the next day or the very same day. There's another option that allows me to seller fulfill this. So I keep this in my warehouse, and when you buy it off of Amazon, I get notified by Amazon that you ordered this. I get your address, and I have to ship you this. There's something called Seller Fulfilled Prime, where this gets advertised on the website as a Prime shipping eligible item. Usually comes with some types of delivery guarantees, and also Amazon allows you to order a certain amount. That allows me to earn that Prime badge on the website without actually shipping this into Amazon. Now, here, long story short, well, these fees, it's believed by Wells Fargo, is going to push more sellers to ship their items from their own warehouses or their own garages, if you will. And I think that's potentially a little bit bullish for the shippers out there, the UPSs, the FedEx, because if I'm shipping this, it doesn't go on an Amazon van, at least at the current time. Amazon, I think, is going to work on this to where I can, or if I'm a high volume seller, I do use their delivery services. But more often than not, it either goes to the post office, which is great for the federal government, or it goes to FedEx or UPS. We'll certainly monitor that as we go forward, but certainly these fees probably good for Amazon's bottom line. Moving on to Netflix, start of the week at 606, and I'm a broken record. Stock literally basically unchanged on the week. Paramount, though, another streaming and entertainment division, ticker symbol PARA. It's about $11 stock. Got about a $7 billion valuation. It's allegedly the most shorted S&P 500 communication stock in the month of February. And so whenever you see this type of thing, sometimes it creates opportunity. Okay, it takes opportunity to buy these kind of beaten down names. Obviously, if you're around during the 2020 timeframe, you saw a lot of the largest shorted stocks. They got squeezed out by the Reddit crowds and the Wall Street Bets crowd. Potentially something like that could happen here, although that's died down a little bit. But I think what you could see, I think definitely what you've got to see in the streaming and the entertainment space that Netflix is involved in, I think you're going to need more consolidation. I don't know if it'll happen from a regulatory perspective, but I think with all these different streaming services, you either need to have partnerships and they need to start be bundling, or other companies like Apple, like Amazon, or Paramount and HBO, they start combining and you see consolidation in the industry, because these stocks are super beat down, but they are products that people use on a daily basis. Moving on to NVIDIA, start of the week at 871 and up fractionally to finish the week at 878. Company is holding their GTC conference next week. You'll hear from the great Jensen Huang, CEO and founder of NVIDIA. Among other things, we'll see if that news is able to drive NVIDIA shares higher. Moving on to Google, start of the week at 137. This stock caught a bid. You'll love this from a technical perspective. Up 2.8% to finish the week at $141 and some change. Google is going to restrict election queries in its AI model Gemini. That's probably good, considering Gemini could not accurately depict the founders of, I think, the United States and also Nazi Germany soldiers. If you can't get that right, well, you probably shouldn't be answering questions about elections. Moving on to Microsoft. Start of the week at 402, very similar to Google. This stock also caught a bid, up 3.4% to finish the week at 416. Microsoft's cloud and on-premise price hikes could boost revenue. So we're starting to see last month, the company is hiking prices at its cloud and its on-premise products. Could open the door, obviously, for more revenue and profit for Microsoft. Also could open the door, right, for Google, Amazon, Oracle, IBM, and the rest to either keep their pricing the same to draw in more clients, or they could follow in Microsoft's footsteps and raise prices right along with them. Microsoft edged up earlier in the week and really on the week, as it says its Copilot for security to be available next month. It's going to use the artificial intelligence Copilot feature to summarize incidents and analyze vulnerabilities. Now, some people within the industry, including JP Morgan, says this is going to drive a paradigm shift inside of the cybersecurity arena. Certainly keep track of that and monitor stocks maybe like Palo Alto Networks and others. Moving on to Tesla. It's deja vu all over again. This stock started the week at 179. I had to double check this. The stock again, I think we were down 9% last week. Down another 9%. You're going to see from a technical perspective, it got very ugly for Tesla, down to $163. In fact, we're approaching a 52-week low on Tesla. Elon Musk says XAI will open source Grok chatbot, quote, this week. And you have to quote timelines as it relates to Elon Musk, because this week probably means more like this month or maybe this year if you look at his track record with predicting timelines. Tesla is now the worst performing S&P 500 stock year to date, as shares of the electric vehicle giant are down nearly 34% year to date. We started the year at 248. Tesla again all the way down to $163. Elon is souring on Mr. Don Lemon, former anchor or former personality, if you will, on CNN. He had a show on X. Clearly, Elon Musk and Don Lemon don't probably agree politically, but what's strange is that Lemon interviewed Elon Musk, and then shortly after the interview, Elon Musk canceled his show. And so we'll see if it does anything to, I think that Tucker Carlson has a pretty strong partnership with X. We'll see if this impacts other partnerships that are potentially happening. We also know that on Twitter, they're kind of moving into maybe potentially a YouTube competitor as well. Maybe one day you'll find the Investor Channel streaming their videos largely on X. We'll see what happens there. Elon Musk pays a visit to the Tesla Gigafactory in Germany that was unfortunately attacked by arson and had to close. Reports are that it has been reconnected to the grid and things are coming back online at the Gigafactory. Moving over to the technical segment of the show, where we like to look at lines and graphs and charts. And the S&P 500, there's still no indication that this mega uptrend that you've been in is over, but it is decision day. I mean, if you really want to zoom in on this, you draw this line in as accurately as you possibly can. Some people might say you actually broke trend on this candle today. When you break trend, especially break trend on high volume, that can be a reversal signal. Any type of reversal in the S&P 500, again, it's going to get ugly, I think. Not necessarily ugly very quickly, but I think you're in for sideways chop, if not kind of downward chop in the markets going forward. The noise and the info is going to get ugly, but man, you got to buy that uptrend there. Speaking of uptrends, we'll zoom in on Meta. Take a look. Did have a break of trend. We were in this after earnings, we gapped up with Meta. Beautiful, just a beautiful pattern of higher highs, higher lows, investors just stepping in like clockwork at higher prices. But look at the price action over the last 4 days. You've broken out of this trend. This trend is more or less over, at least on the uptrend side. We technically broke through the previous lows, which we're sitting right here. We're basically sitting on them. It's decision day for Meta going into next week. Will you find some footing here and break higher, or will you break lower? If you're not in this name, you're hoping it breaks lower. There's a gap to fill. There's the all-time highs, pullbacks to 400 on Meta. that's where you're looking. Moving on to Apple, has basically been going sideways for almost a year now. We've been trading between $165 up to about $200 per share, or towards the low end. Some people might say that you've also created a double top formation. You have not confirmed that you're out of that, because in the shorter term, look at this steep downtrend you're in. Until you break above, creating a new series of higher highs, you still got to assume this steep downtrend is intact. We'll certainly see this when we get over to Tesla. You might dump out the bottom. You dump out on Apple, and your first option is about 157 or so. Amazon still looks really, really, really good. It's got one of the longest and most consistent uptrends out of all of these stocks. Still looks absolutely beautiful. Pullbacks in Amazon, particularly down into the 150-ish range. That would be very exciting. Netflix, also very similar to Amazon, a little more volatility, more or less to the upside, but we've been locked in an uptrend for almost 2 years, believe it or not, with this stock. This one's still looking great. It's amazing, because you have Paramount, which is the most shorted stock. It basically does the exact same thing Netflix does, or is in the exact same business as Netflix. They don't do it exactly the same way. Obviously, profitability, revenue, those types of things, not the same. But look at this. Yeah, it just looks still beautiful. Netflix is interestingly enough, Netflix, out of all these stocks, one of the most durable out of them all. Moving over to NVIDIA, you have that big reversal candle, this big red candle on slightly above average volume, created kind of a flagging formation. Little indecision with these types of things. Typically, when you make these triangles, you're looking for a break probably next week during the conference. You're either going to break to the upside. I know everybody tuned in on a Friday to have me tell you you're looking for NVIDIA to go up or down. But you are monitoring this one pretty close. I think you got to push higher. If you didn't initially take profits, and that's something you want to do, you put some money in your pocket on another retest of the highs. You break lower, you're looking to get in, but just understand, I mean, holy crap, this stock, just a mean reversion could take you down to the 600s. A big old correction could take you down to 380. I mean, go from 880 to 380, and you should buy it hand over fist. Obviously, I mean, when the stock's at 880, it's oh yeah, no kidding, you'd buy it at 380. But just understand, if you make this technical move, which again, you've done 2 times just in the last 6 or 7 years with NVIDIA. You make this move, it's actually it's tough to step in there and buy. Now, Google, wow, look at this. This is what you're looking for, particularly with Apple. So we talked about how Apple's making a steep kind of series of lower highs, lower lows. So what you're looking for with Apple is basically a canceling out of that really micro trend. And Google did that. Found some footing. Congratulations. If you did step in, you would have had to step in maybe a little early. We put these brown lines in the middle of the channel. That's kind of your initial buy a share or two, or depending on your account side, maybe it's 10 shares or 100 shares, depending on how much money you got. But the brown line and maybe I should have a little key or whatever that tells you this type of thing. But the brown line is your indication. This is where you get interested. And with Google, we kind of broke just below it. We didn't come all the way and test the bottom of the channel, which actually doesn't happen very often. You notice in this uptrend, we've only touched the bottom of the channel for a day or two. Most of the time, this is why we put the brown line in here, you're actually stopping short of that or slicing through it just for a day or two. Google making a nice reversal pattern. Looks like it wants to at least come up here and retest 150, because you have these blow off top up into the 150. With Google, you'd actually like to see us push into the 160s, which I think would take you, again, back over the highs. We'll see if the company's able to do that. Moving over to Microsoft. Speaking of durable, I thought we were going to be bound for sideways consolidation. I was wrong. $400 on the downside, $421 to the upside. Well, this week we kind of pierced up through it. This red line, which I'll change it to a beautiful shade of purple for the Los Angeles Lakers maybe, or the LSU Tiger fans out there, that is still intact, and we are just kind of riding up that purple line. This mega breakneck uptrend, that's still intact, and you got to assume it is until it isn't. Now, speaking of isn't, oh man, Tesla looking rough. thought there was a shorter term trade opportunity. We thought, well, this technical pattern, it has been in place since June of 2023. So what is that? Like, I can't do math, but maybe 7 or 8 months, this technical pattern has been in place. So when you were at the bottom of the technical pattern, you could have placed a trade down here, put some stop loss shortly below that, playing the rebound to the middle of the channel or to the top of the channel. Again, shorter term trade, not for everybody. Well, that wouldn't have worked because finally the technical pattern did not hold, and it did not hold to the downside. Now you are on high alert for Tesla. Volume bar at the bottom, not really showing increasing volume, but definitely has not slowed down at all. First stop for Tesla is probably these lows that we made back in April of 2023, down here at like just $10 lower. You break 153, there is some small area consolidation between like 140. I mean, I think I would just look at Tesla. You've got $10 increments all the way back to the lows that you made back in January of 2023, back to 100. And right now, it looks like to me, again, this is technically, you want to retest this area. And I think at some point, if Tesla can prove that it can continue to sell electric vehicles in a difficult interest rate environment, also a difficult market for electric vehicles, if the company is able to do that and get on some of its other initiatives, including its power business, but also I think that humanoid robot is a big deal for the company. If they can focus and get that out, well, there are some buying opportunities for Tesla. I also was at the Country Club yesterday and saw a beautiful Cybertruck there, so slightly jealous that I wasn't the one driving it. Guys, hopefully you guys have a wonderful day. It's Friday. Sit back and relax. Enjoy your weekend. Spend some time doing the things you love. Thanks for joining me today. Back again next week. Until then, good luck with your investments.